Hello, I am Halcyon and I'd like to welcome you back to a new chapter of Bandits Ballads. Before we jump into the action, I have to take a moment to address a bit of criticism that this series has received over time. According to some people, this series contains too many details. You are so very correct. I must congratulate your powers of observation. That is the point of this playthrough, as I've stated in the Authentic Raider experience, you know, the video without which Bandits Ballads wouldn't even exist. Here's exactly what I've said back then. In time, once my warband grows into a proper horde, I'll even be able to lay waste to entire cities and plunder them for all they've got. But that might come some other time, in a proper playthrough series featuring another character inspired by Ukzug's exploits. This was a one-off kind of video, and in the interest of saving time, I had to skip many details that could only fit in an episodic format, such as my Trader Stories campaign. If I were to do this in a playthrough series, it would have probably taken Ukzug 5 episodes to get to where he is right now.
I'm very particular with my words.
Now that we've cleared the air, let's get into the thick of it. But not before our daily ritual of recapping past events. So let's see. Throughout the first 8 chapters, Balon Blacktide started from Jack Diddley Squat, built a huge Instagram following, and with their support, he amassed a sizable amount of wealth. But 200,000 schmeckles is only the beginning, and in order to get more, I'll have to develop my roguery skill. However, the only way of doing that is by breaking nobles out of prison. I've stated this before and I'll say it again. I believe raiding should turn me into a better raider, not prison breaks, but if that's what it takes to improve my skill, well, who am I to question greatness? The very first thing I've done today was visit the tavern like the drunk I am, and when I got there, the vibe was a good one. People were drinking and dancing and courting the ladies, but I wasn't there for any of these things. I just wanted to get paid for ransoming the sturgeons I just captured in my most recent caravan raid, recruit some mercenaries and listen to the local gossip. If the rumors are to be believed, the Vlandians have been very naughty lately, but according to official documents, the Botanians have already signed a peace treaty with them, so I don't know what the townsmen are on about. Then again, you can't expect drunks to provide reliable information. Another rumor I've heard is that the arena masters are now able to help people retrain their skills, so if I have a set of perks that I no longer need, I can pay a fee, get bludgeoned over the skull and simply relearn the perks when I wake from my coma. This will be immensely helpful because there's certain perks that can't be active at the same time, and they're both very useful for different purposes. Now I can just seamlessly switch between them as the situation changes. My brief visit to the arena also brought the local tournament to my attention, and since I'm here, I might as well compete. Spoiler alert, I lost, thanks to an arrow I took to the face during round 3, but before I went down, I managed to humiliate Guaran in single combat. Why is that relevant? Because not too long ago I had his men killed in battle, and he's still holding a grudge. I mean, you can see the anger reflected in his relentless assault. With a bit of luck on my side, I managed to parry every single hit, and when the opportunity arose, I found an opening and I struck him with full force. I guarantee you, he's even more pissed at me now. No doubt he'll try to rebuild his army and come after me when our nations will inevitably be at war again. After pulling the arrow out of my eye socket, I bribed my way into the keep, hoping to find imperial nobles to rescue from the dungeon, but alas, the jails were empty. The last thing I've done in this city was paying a visit to a local merchant who had the job for me. Use his caravan as bait for a gang of mounted bandits and then ambush them. I've already done such a mission before, so I won't talk too much about it. I must, however, remind you that I haven't done it out of the kindness of my own heart, or for the money, or for the loot. I've done this job because I wanted to capture and then recruit a bunch of horse archers, which didn't really work out, at least not to the scale I was expecting. Once this easy peasy job was done, I set course towards Maronath, where I wanted to try another prison break, but because of my recent attempt, the guard refused to even talk to me so as not to raise any suspicions. Since I can't do it here, maybe I can do it in Dunglanis? Hell, yes I can. Let's see how that went. The first mistake I made in my previous attempt was telling Nadia to sit still and let me handle everything, and she keeps sitting still to this day, so this time I allowed Mitch to give me a hand. He's only equipped with a wooden mallet, but even if he deals no damage whatsoever, he can at least stagger our enemies while I hit him hard, and in addition to that, he's another body that the guards can target instead of focusing all their fury on me. Once the first enemy got killed, I took his axe, cause I figured it's gotta be better than my rusted sword. After killing the second guard in one hit, I concluded that it was, but the axe was quickly replaced by this Falksman's oversized sickle, since it's guaranteed to be even better. And what do you know, I was right once again, as if I'm ever wrong. We had a bit of trouble with the last two guards, but my Falks made short work of them when I eventually landed a hit. Too bad I can't actually keep this weapon, it must be soul-bound to the person I took it from, and if it goes too far from its rightful owner, it simply ceases to exist. After I broke the foreskin out of jail, he thanked me, my standings with his clan skyrocketed, and I restored some of my skill in charm and roguery. Now that's progress! But the more I develop my skills, the slower they'll increase, and unfortunately, prison breaks are the fastest way to become a better bandit. I am a bit annoyed by this because I have to run around from one town to another until I find people to break out, and it seems that these lords have a preference to imprison their enemies in the dungeons of their castles, not their towns. You know what the problem is? I am not allowed to set foot in their castles because I've been a very naughty boy, so my pool of rescues is very limited. Which is why I'm trying so damn hard to improve my relations with these lords. Such as Ergeon, who gave me a tax collection job which I could finish right now, paying him out of my own pocket on behalf of the villagers while skipping the best part of such a job. Breaking their legs. But come on, do I look like I'm running a charity? He did warn me that the peasants are prone to committing tax evasion and told me to ignore whatever bullshit excuses they come up with. Of course, I could at least pretend that I believe their lies and leave them off the hook after all. I only needed to bring Ergeon 1700 dinars, which is a paltry sum, and excusing the villagers' debts would improve my relations with them, leading to the notables giving me access to more troops. But let's be honest. If I want warriors, I'll just conscript some bandits or force notables to give me recruits, so I don't really have a reason to care about their feelings. First on my list was the village of Glenlithrig, where the village elder warned me about an epidemic of monkeypox in an attempt to get us to back off. But I reassured my men that the peasant is probably lying, and we've collected a total of 1716 dinars. Everyone is still fine for the moment, but if anything happens, I'll order my men to kill the infected and burn the bodies to slow the spread. Next I was going to travel to the village of Morehig, from where I collected 800 dinars before the headman told me that they're a bit short on cash and that they're willing to pay me in grain. Because I am a generous man, I accepted that offer, as the grain is worth about 1000 dinars, which would bring the total to 1800, which is pretty good. Finally, I paid a visit to Dianto Gmail, where the locals warned that they're too desperate to part with their money, and hinted that they might react violently if I keep pushing. I wasn't going to let myself be intimidated by some punks, so I refused to exempt anyone, but because of this, 2 of my lads got murdered as they were heroically looting the villagers' homes. 1628 dinars is what we took from this village, bringing the total payment to 5144. Subtract 1685, which is what Ergeon is owed, and I got almost 3,500 gold coins for this job. Not bad for a low-level thug just starting his criminal career. Unfortunately, I am not just some low-level thug. I am a raider boss, and this can barely pay the wages of my men for a few days. But I didn't do it for the money, I did it to have access to Ergeon's castle, which doesn't even have anyone imprisoned inside, so in a way, this was a massive waste of time. But at least I had fun though. It's one thing to raid for yourself, but when the villagers hear that you're doing this on behalf of their lord, the pain and betrayal in their eyes, it's Delightful. But you might have noticed that when I left the city I had 90 men and now I'm left with only 60. Have they all fallen victim to monkeypox? Nope. Some of my people are missing because I did not narrate things chronologically because you see, in between my arrival to Dunktown and playing tax collector, I've spotted a Sturgian lord's retinue and I decided to attack them. This was not a typical battle because when I first talked to the guy, I got the feeling that the balance of power is tilted in his favor, and because he wasn't looking for a fight either, I let him go. Temporarily. But only because I wanted to fill my party to its maximum size with some mercenary crossbows and battalion volunteers. But even after I got 101 soldiers at my back, the odds were still not in my favor. Even so, this was the opportunity of a lifetime, so I challenged the Sturgeon to fisticuffs. Being the aggressor afforded me the opportunity to control the battle because Roland would just stay defensive and wait for me to make the first move. A mistake on his part, seeing how his soldiers could easily overwhelm mine and claim victory, if only they weren't such pansies. So I arranged my men in their standard formations. Archers spread out, infantry formed a shield wall in front of them, and cavalry went to the side, standing ready for a flanking maneuver. You see, Roland's army has a stronger cavalry than me and more numerous. He's got 24 riders, I only have 20. But he's made the mistake of splitting them up to protect both his flanks, and what he thinks is his greatest strength is actually the only weakness I can exploit in this battle. So I went with my 20 riders to the left side of the battlefield across the hills. If we were fighting in an open field, the enemy's archers would provide fire support for the cavalry group we were attacking. But because of the terrain, the 12 horsemen were more or less isolated from the rest of their group. These were some tough bastards. I mean, one of them took 2 javelins to the back like a champ and then turned around and slapped me, but their strength led to overconfidence, which made them think that 12 of them could overpower 21 of us. Perhaps they were right, but I wasn't going to sit around and let them overwhelm us, so my boys simply employed hit and run tactics while I rode around, poking whoever I could and hoping that my men can finish them off. That worked. Eventually, I even managed to kill one of the bastards myself, but it took us about 4 minutes just to kill 9 of them. Still, 9 of them are worth 30 of us, and with a third of the enemy cavalry out of the picture, the balance of power shifted slightly in my favor. As soon as that happened, Roland gave his soldiers the order to advance, but they've already lost their advantage. As his men marched towards my shield wall, I took my riders behind enemy lines, planning to unleash them as soon as the infantries made contact. But at this point I've made a mistake that cost a lot of my people their lives. I gave my cavalry the order to dismount so they don't get stabbed off their horses by enemy spears. And while they stumbled and fumbled, my own infantry was getting sliced up. I have to admit, Sturgian infantry is even tougher than their cavalry and I've already sang their praises. But in spite of that, my rangers are not pansies and I believe they could easily compete. And if they can't, we still outnumber the enemy, so this one will be a victory if I'm also doing my part. After a couple more minutes, the chaos died down along with the enemy's infantry, but this victory extracted a heavy toll. Only a handful of my archers survived the ordeal, and all that was left to do at this point was chase down their cavalry and put them down, which is why I ordered all of my men to mount any horse they find. Eventually, the battle was won, although by the end of it, only 24 of my 102 warriors were left standing. 34 would bounce back once their injuries heal, but 44 would never get back up ever again. Instead, they would feast for all eternity in the drowned god's watery halls. Their courage has earned them that honor, at least. But I do not fight just because I enjoy it. I fight for profit, so let's see if this battle was worth it. The loot we got was decent. We got a couple of war horses, which can be quite expensive, and a lot of the gear dropped by the fallen soldiers, which can probably fetch a nice sum, but nothing spectacular. I was hoping that these elite Sturgian warriors would drop a good weapon or some sturdy armor for me, but I got nothing of the sort. As I was murmuring to myself, one of my men asked why I can't just buy some gear. After all, I can afford it. My boys don't really understand because they're not true Ironborn. They're iron-made, but for an Ironman it is disgraceful to pay the gold price for his battle gear. If you didn't kill an enemy for the armor you're wearing or the weapon you're wielding, you did not earn the right to use it. Lords who have proven themselves on the battlefield by slaying countless foes are exempt from this rule, so I will have earned the right to purchase my equipment once I've conquered a town. Until then, I'm bound to this rule. But the gear I got was good enough for my companions, so at least they got something to remember this battle by. After this battle was done, well, we already talked about what happened. I ran around collecting taxes and recruiting a few more people for my warband. I bought some stolen velvet and turned a profit, and then paid a visit to Carbanseth and Pencannock to see if there's anyone I can rescue from the dungeons. I couldn't find anyone, so it seems like my roguery skill is going to remain undeveloped for the time being. Perhaps the heat in Maronath died down so I can pull another noble out of jail? We're not going to find that out just yet, because there's a surplus of South Imperial trade convoys wandering Battania, and I gotta raid at least one of them. I chose the one I was most likely to catch, and it would seem that when I chase it through a forest, I have an extreme speed advantage. That advantage is lost outside the forest, but even then I'm able to keep up, and I can herd this caravan towards the south side of Seonon, where I attacked the last one. This seems like a reliable ambush spot. I might use it again in the future. By now you may already be familiar with my caravan raiding method, but just for newcomers, I'll briefly mention it again. Step number 1 is to catch the caravan, but that's already been taken care of, so let's skip to step number 2, where I pretend that my sole intention is to trade and sell them some of my stuff for a fraction of its actual price. Because upon a successful raid you can loot half their cargo but only a tenth of their money. That's because they keep the coin in a strongbox that can only be opened with a unique set of keys, which the caravaneers might just throw away to prevent you from opening the damned thing. And step number 3 is revealing my hostile intent to the traders, hoping that they'll see reason and relinquish their cargo to me. But we all know how that goes. Before I fought them, I remembered that my companion's skill development requires my urgent attention, and I also took a moment to ponder my abilities as well. 82 roguery. It's gonna be a while till I get it to 150, which is probably where it was before I lost my memory. And it's going to take several whiles until I fully develop this aptitude and make the most out of my life of crime. But after our brief moment of self-reflection, it was time for violence to commence. Should I even bother telling you how this fight went? After all, I use the same battle doctrine in all of my caravan raids, and I can't say I've changed much about it. You simply can't improve upon perfection. Whatever, I'll tell you about it, it won't take too long. As you know, archers are the main source of damage, with infantry and horsemen playing more of a support role. Because the bulk of my forces could handle the enemy cavalry, my riders were ordered to charge into their bowmen to devastating effect. In this fight, everyone handled themselves admirably, including my enemies, because they simply refused to show any fear, and not even one of them attempted to flee for their lives, like they did in our previous raids. I commend them for their courage, but that wasn't good for me, because I was hoping I'd at least attack this caravan twice and retrieve 75% of my loot, not just half, but now there was no one left to attack. These fellas must have lived by the principle of death before dishonor. Oh well, at least the stuff I did get was pretty decent, plus I managed to empty their strongbox before attacking, so it's not all bad. Thanks to my recent string of victories, my tactical expertise developed quite nicely and I became more skilled at fighting in an open field. But during my moment of post-battle clarity, I've also realized that my roguery skill has gone up to 108. Wasn't it at 82 just prior to this raid? What happened? I don't know for sure, but it feels like this caravan raid awakened some dormant memories from my past, and I've started to recall the arts of war that I lost upon my arrival to Calradia. I really have no idea, so I'll have to raid a few more caravans to confirm this. For now, I'll stick to doing prison breaks, since they are the only surefire method of developing my skill, but because the jails of Seonon were empty, I decided to go back to Maronath. I reckon that it's been a while since I botched Nadia's rescue, and the heat died down, so I could attempt to extract another Imperial Lord. This time I chose Neemos, one of Garios's cousins, or nephews, or whatever he is. They're part of the same clan, but I can't see any familial relations beyond that, so I'm only making assumptions. But let's get back to the matter at hand. The first prison guard was easy to deal with, but the second one gave me a bit of trouble. Even though he got hit 4 times, he was still standing and he relentlessly kept attacking. Since I had backup, I figured that all I had to do was block his strikes until my partner knocks him out. But Neemos was as unreliable as my ability to parry, so I ended up being the one getting slapped to the ground. Fortunately for the Imperial, he managed to eventually knock the Battanian's lights out and he survived the ordeal. Unlike his niece. Or was she his cousin? I haven't got a clue. But eventually he went back to his overcrowded cell and I was thrown out of the city for the second time by the warden that I just bribed. I don't blame him, he has to keep up appearances. For the trouble, I got 3 levels in roguery, which is acceptable, but if I keep going like this, I will die of old age before I maximize my skill. Perhaps caravan raiding is the way to go? We'll find that out in the next chapter, because this one has been going on for long enough. But before we bring it to an end, let's take a look at what we've accomplished in these past 9 days. In terms of money, my net gain is a mere 10k, which is a drop in the bucket, but financial and professional growth were not my goals for this chapter. Personal development was, and in that department I've done quite well. Better than ever, in fact. In just these last 9 days, I've gained 42 levels in my raiding skill, which is more development than I've ever experienced in 3 years of pillaging this continent. And roguery wasn't the only skill to increase. My charm and tactical abilities also display significant improvements along with a slight boost to all of my other aptitudes. All in all, I'd say I'm on the right path, seeing how my abilities are the last pieces of the puzzle when it comes to my ascension to lordship. And just to verify if my theory is correct, I'll spend the next few weeks ambushing caravans and see if I can uncover more long-forgotten raiding techniques. In the next chapter, of course, because this one is done. Thank you for watching and goodbye.